own subjects. Hearing no more, he soon quitted the stream, hoping at least to get rid of the sight of himself, but he had scarcely gone 20 paces when he tumbled into a pitfall that was laid to catch bears. The bear hunters, descending from some trees hard by, caught him, chained him, and only too delighted to get hold of such a curious-looking animal, led him along with them to the capital of his own kingdom. There great rejoicings were taking place, and the bear hunters, asking what it was all about, were told that it was because Prince Cherry, the torment of his subjects, had just been struck dead by a thunderbolt, just punishment of all his crimes. 4 courtiers, his wicked companions, had wished to divide his throne between them, but the people had risen up against them, and offered the crown to Solomon, the old tutor whom Cherry had ordered to be arrested. All this the poor monster heard. He even saw Solomon sitting upon his own throne, and trying to calm the populace by representing to them that it was not certain Prince Cherry was dead, that he might return one day to reassume with honour the crown which Solomon only consented to wear as a sort of viceroy.
"I know his heart," said the honest and faithful old man. "It is tainted, but not corrupt. If alive, he may yet reform, and be all his father over again to you, his people, whom he has caused to suffer so much." These words touched the poor beast so deeply that he ceased to beat himself against the iron bars of the cage in which the hunters carried him about, becoming gentle as a lamb, and suffered himself to be taken quietly to a menagerie, where were kept all sorts of strange and ferocious animals, a place which he had often visited as a boy, but in which he never thought he should be shut up himself.
However, he owned he had deserved it all, and began to make amends by showing himself very obedient to his keeper. This man was almost as great a brute as the animals he had charge of, and when he was in ill humour he used to beat them without rhyme or reason. One day while he was sleeping, a tiger broke loose and leaped upon him, eager to devour him. Cherry at first felt a thrill of pleasure at the thought of being revenged. Then, seeing how helpless the man was, he wished himself free that he might defend him. Immediately the doors of his cage opened. The keeper, waking up, saw the strange beast leap out, and imagined, of course, that he was going to be slain at once. Instead, he saw the tiger lying dead, and the strange beast creeping up and laying itself at his feet to be caressed. But as he lifted up his hand to stroke it, a voice was heard saying, "Good actions never go unrewarded." And instead of a frightful monster, there crouched on the ground nothing but a pretty little dog. Cherry, delighted to find himself thus metamorphosed, caressed the keeper in every possible way, till at last the man took him up in his arms and carried him to the king, to whom he related this wonderful story from beginning to end. The queen wished to have the charming little dog, and Cherry would have been exceedingly happy could he have forgotten that he was originally a man and a king. He was lodged most elegantly, had the richest of collars to adorn his neck, and heard himself praised continually. But his beauty rather brought him into trouble, for the queen, afraid lest he might grow too large for a pet, took advice of dog doctors, who ordered that he should be fed entirely upon bread, and that very sparingly, so poor Cherry was sometimes nearly starved. One day, when they gave him his crust for breakfast, a fancy seized him to go and eat it in the palace garden, so he took the bread in his mouth and trotted away toward a stream which he knew, and where he sometimes stopped to drink. But instead of the stream he saw a splendid palace glittering with gold and precious stones. Entering the doors was a crowd of men and women magnificently dressed, and within there was singing and dancing and good cheer of all sorts. Yet, however grandly and gaily the people went in, Cherry noticed that those who came out were pale, thin, ragged, half naked, covered with wounds and sores. Some of them dropped dead at once, others dragged themselves on a little way and then lay down, dying of hunger, and vainly begged a morsel of bread from others who were entering in, who never took the least notice of them. Cherry perceived one woman who was trying feebly to gather and eat some green herbs. "Poor thing," said he to himself, "I know what it is to be hungry, and I want my breakfast badly enough, but still it will not kill me to wait till dinner time, and my crust may save the life of this poor woman." So the little dog ran up to her, and dropped his bread at her feet. She picked it up and ate it with avidity. Soon she looked quite recovered, and Cherry, delighted, was trotting back again to his kennel, when he heard loud cries, and saw a young girl dragged by 4 men to the door of the palace, which they were trying to compel her to enter. Oh, how he wished himself a monster again, as when he slew the tiger, for the young girl was no other than his beloved Zelia. Alas! what could a poor little dog do to defend her? But he ran forward and barked at the men, and bit their heels, until at last they chased him away with heavy blows, and then he lay down outside the palace door, determined to watch and see what had become of Zelia. Conscience pricked him now. What, thought he, I am furious against these wicked men who are carrying her away, and did I not do the same myself? Did I not cast her into prison, and intend to sell her as a slave? Who knows how much more wickedness I might not have done to her and others if heaven's justice had not stopped me in time? While he lay thinking and repenting, he heard a window open, and saw Zelia throw out of it a bit of dainty meat. Cherry, who felt hungry enough by this time, was just about to eat it when the woman to whom he had given his crust snatched him up in her arms. "Poor little beast!" cried she, patting him. "Every bit of food in that palace is poisoned. You shall not touch a morsel." At the same time the voice in the air repeated again, "Good actions never go unrewarded," and Cherry found himself changed into a beautiful white pigeon. He remembered with joy that white was the colour of the fairy Candide, and began to hope that she was taking him into favour again. So he stretched his wings, delighted that he might now have a chance of approaching his fair Zelia. He flew up to the palace windows, and finding one of them open, entered and sought everywhere, but he could not find Zelia. Then in despair he flew out again, resolved to go over the world until he beheld her once more. He took flight at once, traversed many countries swiftly as a bird can, but found no trace of his beloved. At length, in a desert, sitting beside an old hermit in his cave, and partaking with him his frugal repast, Cherry saw a poor peasant girl, and recognized Zelia. Transported with joy, he flew in, perched on her shoulder, and expressed his delight and affection by 1,000 caresses. She, charmed with the pretty little pigeon, caressed it in her turn, and promised it that if it would stay with her she would love it always. "What have you done, Zelia?" said the hermit, smiling. And while he spoke, the white pigeon vanished, and there stood Prince Cherry in his own natural form. "Your enchantment ended, Prince, when Zelia promised to love you. Indeed, she has loved you always, but your many faults constrained her to hide her love. These are now amended, and you may both live happy, if you will, because your union is founded upon mutual esteem." Cherry and Zelia threw themselves at the feet of the hermit, whose form also began to change. His soiled garments became of dazzling whiteness, and his long beard and withered face grew into the flowing hair and lovely countenance of the fairy Candide. "Rise up, my children," said she. "I must now transport you to your palace, and restore to Prince Cherry his father's crown, of which he is now worthy." She had scarcely ceased speaking when they found themselves in the chamber of Solomon, who, delighted to find again his beloved pupil and master, willingly resigned the throne, and became the most faithful of his subjects. King Cherry and Queen Zelia reigned together for many years, and it is said that the former was so blameless and strict in all his duties that though he constantly wore the ring which Candide had restored to him, it never once pricked his finger enough to make it bleed. End of Prince Cherry. Recording by Linda Ferguson.